Hello all, welcome to our video review of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, a 2001 movie directed by Peter Jackson based off of The Fellowship of the Ring, the first book in the Lord of the Rings series by J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm Adam Graff.
I'm Julian Ingthao, and today we'll be covering four ideas from the movie and how the movie does these things well or how it can improve. We'll be covering music, dialogue, special effects, and direction.
But first, let's get some quick background about the movie. The script was written by J.R.R. Tolkien, obviously, Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens. The story follows the hobbit Frodo Baggins and friends as he sets out on a journey to destroy the One Ring, a powerful magic object created by the dark sorcerer Sauron in his quest to take over Middle-earth. Along Frodo's journey, he encounters different challenges and characters, some who help and some who hinder his journey.
The main actors are Elijah Wood as Frodo Baggins, Sir Ian McKellen as Gandalf the Grey, Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn, Sean Astin as Samwise Gamgee, Sean Bean as Boromir, John Rhys-Davies as Gimli, Orlando Bloom as Legolas, Sir Christopher Lee as Saruman, and Sir Ian Holm as Bilbo Baggins. Now, before we get into the different elements of film, I want to explain how I'll be rating this movie. We'll be using a 10-star system, which will give a lot of room to be harsh or positive. So, Adam, what would you rate this film overall?
For my overall rating of the film, I would give it a 9.1 out of 10. And what would your rating be?
My overall rating of the film would be an 8.9 out of 10.
Averaging our two ratings would give it a 9 out of 10 overall.
Now, without further ado, let's get into the first element of film. We'll be exploring music.
First off, I'll be giving my rating of the music used in the film, 10 stars. I believe that the score in this movie is one of the best I've ever heard, and it deserves this rating 100%.
I completely agree. My rating for the music would also be 10 stars. I loved it.
So that means music is an average rating of 10 out of 10. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of why we gave the music the ratings we did, let's take a look at some scenes from the movie which had good use of music.
For our first scene, we'll be looking at a scene roughly halfway through the movie titled The Ring Goes South. This is a scene where the Fellowship is just leaving Rivendell and starting their journey. Wow, what a great scene. Imagine if the music was muted. It would just be nine people walking on a mountain going for a hike. Doesn't seem as epic, does it? The music marks the beginning of a grand journey and sets the tone and importance for the Fellowship's mission to save the world. Nothing supplements the scene except for the music. No dialogue, no acting, just people walking. It is one of the most iconic and memorable scenes.
The next scene we'll be taking a look at is near the end of the movie when the Fellowship is traveling down the River Anduin, titled The Gates of Ivernoth. Wow, that was a pretty good scene. The siren type music at the beginning reminds me of the Odyssey. Sirens are half bird, half human, and they sing a seductive song to steer sailors off course into their deaths. So maybe hinting at the dangers that lie ahead for them. You know, they're about to set off into a new journey. This fellowship has been separated. Music also sets a good tone for them nearing their final destination on their journey.
The next scene we'll be looking at is a scene from the Mines of Moria, when the Fellowship is heading for the Bridge of Khazad-dûm.
To the bridge of Khazad-dûm.
Wow! Wow, that was great. The heroic music paired with the run scene wouldn't seem to fit on paper, but it really does. As the danger intensifies, so does the music. The rhythm becomes more urgent, and the orchestration grows denser, and the tempo increases, mirroring the Fellowship's increasing desperation and running away from the creatures they face.
Final scene we'll be looking at for music is the last battle of the movie, a scene called The Death of Boromir. We can see here the impact not only of music, but of the lack of music itself. As Boromir gets hit with the arrow, the music swells with a mournful beauty, and you can hear Boromir's groaning and last breaths. By making the music take a backseat, it allows the audience to focus on Boromir himself and reflects his last stand and the passing of a true hero. The music incorporates the Gondor theme, a noble and solemn motif that represents Boromir's homeland and his deep commitment to his people. This theme is intertwined with the more intimate and sorrowful strains that reflect the personal tragedy of Boromir's downfall and his redemption.
Next, we'll be moving on to the dialogue. My rating for the dialogue in this film is 9. What is yours, Adam?
My rating of the dialogue in this film would be 8. That would give us a combined rating of 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, the dialogue was a bit choppy, but there were some memorable moments.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are a couple scenes that really stand out in this movie and make it quite memorable.
Yeah, the first example we'll be looking at is the authentic dialogue between Aragorn and Boromir during his death.
They took the little ones. Stay still. Frodo. Where is Frodo? I let Frodo go. Then you did what I could not. I tried to take the ring from him.
W-O-W. Wow. This scene is amazing. It cements Boromir's character development throughout his journey and is a remarkable scene for his end. Boromir's first words were that Merry and Pippin were taken. His confessions of his failings to Aragorn, he admits his attempt to take the ring from Frodo, expressing regret and a sense of shame over his actions, shows Boromir's vulnerability and character development. Also showcases the depth in the relationship between the two that they develop throughout their journey. By admitting that he tried to take the ring from Frodo, it's a humbling admission of his weakness to the ring's power, which serves to humanize him and make his character more relatable.
Next, we'll be taking a look at probably the most memorable scene from the movie, with most memorable line uttered. That would, of course, be Gandalf's "You shall not pass."
You shall not pass!
Wow.
Oh.
This piece of dialogue is possibly the most memorable of the entire trilogy. From a narrative perspective, this moment is pivotal. It marks a significant emotional and plot development, as the Fellowship loses one of its most powerful members, leading to moments of doubt and despair among the remaining ones. This loss, however, also allows for the growth of the other characters, particularly Frodo and Aragorn, who must step up in Gandalf's absence. The scene's dialogue works on multiple levels: literal, symbolic, and thematic. Literally, Gandalf is telling the Balrog that it cannot pass the bridge. Symbolically, he is standing against the encroaching darkness that is threatening Middle-earth. Thematically, the scene speaks to the idea of sacrifice and the power of standing up for what is right, even at great personal cost. It showed the Fellowship how real their mission was and the dire consequences that could happen if they fail.
The next thing we'll be looking at is a great example of dialogue or lack of dialogue. When Boromir and Aragorn are training the hobbits, it shows a crucial development and bonding within the Fellowship without too much dialogue.
Sorry! Never mind, that's enough!
Wow, that was great. Even with minimalistic dialogue, this scene serves as crucial moments of character development. It showcases the director's knowledge of when minimalistic dialogue works best to fill a scene. It sets a realistic tone that the viewers can emotionally connect to without too much dialogue to crowd it. Good dialogue does not mean a lot of dialogue, and this scene perfectly captures this.
However, the dialogue in the film wasn't always top-notch, and that can be seen in this one scene when the hobbits and the Fellowship make it to Lothlorien. They meet the rulers of Lothlorien, Celeborn and Galadriel. And in the opening scene, we see this weird little exchange between Celeborn and the Fellowship, which just really doesn't sound natural. Let's take a look.
The enemy knows you have entered here. What hope you had in secrecy is now gone. 8 that are here, yet 9 there were set out from Rivendell.
Ew.
It doesn't feel natural at all. The dialogue used by Celeborn is a stark contrast to the rest of the characters. It's monotone and emotionless. The directors may have tried to imply a sense of wisdom and knowledge, but it just feels boring and monotonous. When I watched this scene for the first time, I felt like I could have just skipped past this entire part.
The next thing we'll be moving on to is special effects. First time, 2001, the special effects used in this movie was remarkable. It is clear a lot of time and money was put into it. Before we look at the special effects used, let's look at other films' use of special effects that were released in 2001.
We might give the body a pass, but everything falls apart when you see the Scorpion King's face. Dwayne Johnson's CG face looks both inhuman and lamentable, and it completely ruins an otherwise interesting character.
Ooh.
I know, that was really fake.
Yeah, that was so bad. Okay. So, my rating for the special effects in this film is a 9. And what is yours, Adam?
My rating would be a 9.5, which would average ours to a 9.25 rating. So the first notable scene we'll be looking at is, of course, the Balrog. I mean, we couldn't even talk about special effects without mentioning this masterpiece. So let's look at some behind the scenes of how Weta Digital, the company in charge of the scene, created the Balrog.
Little explosions, gas, jets, propane, bits and pieces. And these elements then we drove around in the image using a particle system. We just spent a lot of time on it, and it's sprites. A sprite is a card, it's a billboard that's attached to the particle. So as your particle flies through space, this picture of evolving fire flies through space. Fires, wind and gravity and friction and any other dynamic forces. We create particle systems to sculpt simulations of natural phenomena like fire and smoke, and when it would be too complex to animate.
Wow, that was really informative. Now let's look at the scene in which Gandalf fights the Balrog.
I am the servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Arnor. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun!
Wow, that looked really interesting. Wait, no, it didn't. Wow, that was really surreal. I felt like I was there fighting the Balrog myself. Now, as we know, Weta is the New Zealand team behind the sequence. Given that this movie was created in 2001, they must have put a lot of work into making that Balrog look so realistic. I mean, for such a large creature, its movements looks pretty natural, not robotic at all. And then producing fire on that scale is a huge challenge, and the Balrog sequence alone took months for them to finish. They had to model the Balrog as a huge skeleton, skin the muscles on, and know the physics behind how it would move. Now, the movie didn't simply just use special effects for its creatures. Some shots were actually entirely digital.
So, as you can see, the elf ruins, did you know that shot was entirely created with digital effects? Let's take, it was originally intended to be a camera-only shot scene. During the day of the shoot, the helicopter was too far away, and the zoomed-in camera created too much motion blur. It was way too much that they decided to digitally create the backgrounds entirely. How impressive is that?
Really impressive.
Another impressive use of special effects were the behind the scenes of the Wraith world.
Let's take a look at that scene and see how they did it.
Weta finally started employing was this thing called O-flow. Optical flow is a method of distorting imagery using other moving footage as a kind of a trigger for the distortion.
Wow, that was really informative. The Wraith world, that's the impressive part. This was done with the method of optical flow. Now, the way Weta Digital did it was they displayed the characters as fire and used this pattern of imagery created by the fire to cause the distortion that we see in the scene.
And you're lucky to be here, too. A few more hours and you would have been beyond our aid. But you have some strength in you, my dear Hobbit.
Wow, there's so much to unpack here. There's a digital color grading, the golden tint, that gives an ancient feeling. There's a build set where Elijah Wood is standing, and the waterfalls in the background created from CGI. And you see the background? Well, that's a painting.
Now, throughout the whole movie, there's being special effects being used constantly, and you may not even realize it. This is because the hobbits aren't actually that short. It's created through the use of forced perspective. The camera needed to be set at the perfect angle to create this illusion. And another thing that might surprise you is Gimli, his actor, is actually the tallest member of the cast. But through the use of forced perspective, he's portrayed as the shortest. They also had to keep this aspect in mind during moving forced perspective shots, where it becomes even more complicated. Now, let's take a look at something we think the film could have improved on. We'll be moving on to our final aspect of the film, direction. Now, my rating of this film's direction would be a 7. And yours, Julian?
Mine would be also a 7. We'll be showing some scenes where we think Peter Jackson could have done a better job, or there's something he didn't catch. To clarify, Peter Jackson did a pretty good job in this movie, but we want to show some scenes where he could have done better. For the first
For the
scene, we'll
first
be looking.
scene, for the first scene, we'll be looking at the infamous duel between Gandalf and Saruman.
I gave you the chance of aiding me willingly, but you have elected the way of pain!
Wow. That was disappointing for how powerful those two characters are. I mean, who really wants to come up to a fight and then just this is the end of the fight? As we can see, the magic force pushes and the random spinning look really goofy. And it just doesn't match up at all with the intense music or importance of the fight. Now, of course, some might argue, hey, calm a break. These are old men, you know. They can't perform an epic fight scene with swinging swords and like all the younger actors could, but nevertheless, Peter Jackson should have caught that, you know. And even if they couldn't do some large scale magic blast fight, they should have been able to do something better than.
For another look at where the direction could have been better, here's a scene in which Arwen saves Frodo and brings him to Rivendell. We can see here that the chase scene goes on for way longer than it needs to, and it could have been shortened.
Of course, one scene where we have to mention when we're talking about things the director should have caught is the scene in Lothlorien where Frodo offers a One Ring to Galadriel, and she just starts tweaking out. Let's take a look at it now.
In place of a Dark Lord, you would have a queen! Not dark, but beautiful and terrible as the dawn! Treacherous as the sea! Stronger than the foundations of the earth! All shall love me and despair!
That looked so weird. In my opinion, this just looks really silly, and this could have been blamed on bad special effects, but it is the director's job to look over and improve everything, and he really should have caught this and noticed that it just doesn't look as well as the rest of the movie.
So even with the good special effects, I think it still would have been look really, really goofy, just out of nowhere.
Yeah, I agree. Overall, the direction of the film is quite decent, but there are some scenes where he could have done a better job.
To wrap things up, let's take a quick look at what we covered.
Talks about music and how it was masterfully used to create ambiance and dramatics, allowing the audience to feel like they were actually there inside of the scene.
We covered how the film used expressive dialogue to create both naturalistic and dramatic scenes, depending on what the film needed at the moment.
We looked at some of the advanced special effects used in the film and how ahead of its time these effects were. We even had a bonus scene showing how practical effects were used to make the tallest character look like the shortest.
Overall, this movie did a great job, with very few scenes that could have been tweaked. If I were a first-time watcher, I'd be excited to watch the next two movies in the trilogy to see how things played out.
Yeah, I agree. This movie is great, and it definitely lives up to the books. I think J.R.R. Tolkien would be proud of them if you were here to watch them.
Thank you for watching our movie review on Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring, and let me know your thoughts in the comment below. Make sure to like and subscribe. We're trying to get to our goal of 5 subscribers. Thank you so much.